If you have been scouring the web for your dream property here in France, one thing you must have noticed is the variation of house styles we have here. To start with, the new builds here in France. You buy the plot and you find your own architect afterwards. So already, even in the housing estates, the houses change, even if the overall style remains the same. If you are lucky enough to have already travelled in France, then you will know that you only need to travel an hour or two in any direction to feel like you're in a completely different country. And with the traditional historical homes, things get really, well, regional. And it's not just an accident, it comes from local geology, history, and to a large extent, the local climate. So, in this video, we are going to go on a road trip from Brittany and Normandy down to the Mediterranean coast, showing you 10 very typical house styles you might come across on your way. Because house architecture isn't just a style, it's a lifestyle. And thus it is important for you in your property search. Let's start in the northwest, in Brittany. The traditional Breton home is called a longère, basically a longhouse. They are long and low and built of granite. Well, they weren't built as such, they evolved into them. A small cottage to start with, to which they added a stable. And then the family grew, so they added another part for living. And more family means more animals, so more stables, and so on and so on. Some longères are up to 80 metres long, but these days they've usually been split into multiple units. Generally built of stone, but as you go further east, cob often enters into the mix, as well as second floors. As traditionally, the longères were low and sturdy to avoid Atlantic swells and eventual storms, and with slate roofs with a reasonable angle to evacuate the rain. They can be a bit dark if you don't open up a few windows, but they are certainly solid builds. Let's head a bit northwest to Normandy and their picture postcard half-timbered homes that they call Colombage. The houses are built with chunky wooden frames, with the spaces filled with rendered cob bricks or wattle and daub. Roofs were originally thatched, but most are slate these days, with very steep angles due to the thatched origins. Normandy has very rich soil and stone was harder to quarry, so wood took over. There was also a sort of one-upmanship as to who could actually have the most elaborate timbers in their homes. Lovely properties, but do demand a bit more upkeep with all the timbers showing. Now let's pop across to Salange in central France, just south of Paris. An area of extensive forests and where things become a bit more understated again. Here you'll find houses built from brick and timber, often with simple balanced shapes. Less dramatic, but very regional. This is hunting country. Forest, land, and the houses reflect that. They are designed to sit quietly in the landscape, not dominate it. Let's head back west and a bit further south into the Loire Valley and the troglodytic houses they have there. This is where things get interesting. Homes literally carved into the low limestone cliff faces. Admittedly, you do find other areas with similar cave houses, but the Loire Valley is very well known for them. Here you find whole homes literally carved into the rock, often with just one stone wall to the front, and some are more glorious than others. Some are stunning inside, some are more humble, but all have an incredible stable average temperature all year round. They're not necessarily to everyone's taste, but they're certainly original. The Loire Valley actually has two different styles, those built into the rock and those built of that same rock. The fact that limestone is relatively easy to carve meant it was easy to form. This meant that you also find very prestigious looking symmetrical homes built of large square stone blocks, almost as if it was a predecessor to Lego. South of the Loire itself, the weather does improve, and thus we find low angled pan-tile roofs, and the houses quite often have a half height top floor whose sole purpose is to keep the heat out. Quite often you'll find a large stone arch to one side, giving access to a courtyard to the rear. Moving a bit further south and west again, we arrive in the Shant region of France, with a style popular over a large area of France, but originally from this region. This is a relatively flat region, due to which properties are often built around courtyards, usually for privacy and protection from the winds when they happen. Simple limestone walls with dressed stone corners, fairly low-lying houses with low-angled pan-tile roofs. The houses were designed for practicality, the farmhouse and its adjoining outbuildings. Great for converting into spacious homes with private courtyards for that pool. Now onto the Dordogne, an area dear to my heart. Golden limestone with steep clay tile roofs. Once again, the houses weren't built, they just seemed to grow with the years. Usually a main cottage was built to start with, and over the years bits were added on as and when needed. The whole build makes a glorious hodgepodge of a house. From here and further south, outside living is much of a thing as inside, and lots have large covered terraces, often with great views out over wooded valleys. In towns, the houses expand to fit the space available, and in the countryside they adapt to fit the land. If you don't like square houses, this could well be an area for you. Now we're going to head just a little bit further southeast, and we're in the neighbouring Kerse region and the Kersinoise homes. Being a neighbour to Périgord, the house style is fairly similar, but with some subtle differences. The homes usually have a cellar, cum storage area on the ground floor, and the living accommodation is up on the first floor, usually accessed by more or less prestigious stone stairways. It's a very practical design, especially in rural areas, and once you recognise it, you can't stop seeing it everywhere. Dropping down to the Atlantic coast, towards the Spanish border, we get to the Basque region of France, and it's Etche, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Built into the foothills below the Pyrenees and designed to face the forces of nature and variable climates here. These were often built with a stone base level, then a colourful wooden frame upper. Between the wood was filled with whatever materials they had handy, and then that was rendered over and painted white, making some impressive looking properties, especially when you add the mountain backdrops. The Basque people are known for their strong personalities, and their houses reflect that. And now we're going to head on down to the southeast corner of France and the Provence region. Here the locals live in what they call a masse provençale. These are all about sun, space and simplicity. There are long, low stone houses with shallow roofs, large French doors and covered patios. Here you spend more time living outside than inside. A great lifestyle if you can stand the heat. So, as you can see, France isn't just a singular property market with boring houses. It's a collection of completely different regions, each with its own architecture and each with its own way of living. And this is something people often get wrong. They focus on where to buy, but don't actually think about how they want to live. If you are seriously thinking about buying a property in France and you are not quite sure about which region to choose, then you might want to watch this video here, which is linked at the top and at the end of this one here. But if you have already chosen and are starting the search process, you might want to scan this QR code here or click on the link in the description, then fill out some details and I can help you in your search. I'm Dan Newton, the French estate agent. À bientôt.